That's right. Hey everyone, it's Emily with Hearty Soul, along with the parenting professor Chris Peterson. We are here for another round of rumination on red chairs.
Oh,
red bench
red
today.
benches.
Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy.
I'm not flexible. I'm trying to get my boot up here. Yeah. We're out on day on the farm.
Ruminating in muck boots.
I saw some rumination in the barn.
You sure did.
I did. And I heard some noises that made me kind of, hey, what's going on?
That was pee.
That was. That was. You know, and as a parent, like poop and pee jokes are just, you know.
Cool.
Yeah. That's just kind of what happens.
I like poop and pee jokes.
Tell me about the red tape. I don't know what that means.
Well, this gal here, she had LDA, so a displaced adenomation on the left side.
Okay.
So she had to have surgery.
Okay.
So her milk gets thrown away.
Got it.
That's what the red tape means.
Got it.
Yeah.
Will that change?
Yeah. So she's just got to be
Like
it's 7 days.
7 days.
Yeah. So then we'll test her milk before we can sell it.
You see this pipe above where the cows are up there? This
here?
pipe right here, yep. So this is our sprinkler system.
Yeah, like a mister.
Yep. And so we've got fans that are all temperature controlled, and the mister is temperature controlled. So when
Hey, what about like daylight savings time? Do you have to adjust for that?
Yeah.
Because the cows don't have watches, you know.
So this timer in here automatically does it.
Yeah.
It's
But I
full
like
of
milk
milk
production.
shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have to adjust for that, or does it kind of just?
We just go with the time, so the next shift just, if you go ahead an hour, they just
Yeah.
wait their hour.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're always jockeying with time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it'll take about a day to get everything back into normal.
Well, time is always like the number one thing we talk about in parenting too. Like whenever there's a time schedule, that's where the stresses come. Getting out of the door on time, bedtime, meal time, nap time when they're little, remember? It's like if we could get rid of that time concept, it just seems like it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, it would. These curtains are on a thermostat as well. These girls are, we take care of them like they're our kids, you know. Try to keep them cool.
And not only does that, knowing you guys, that feels good to be like that as a farm.
We used to have a little pasture out here for, like, say, that group.
Yeah.
Yeah, middle of the day, they're in the shed. At night, they'll go out.
Yeah. I
You know,
suppose,
but
yeah.
during the day, you know, they want to be in here.
You always kind of reflect back to what you know. So, like from a teaching perspective, you know, it's kind of what we do with kids. It was one of my favorite jobs as a kid. We had a milk machine in our school.
Yeah.
And it was filling up.
Should go back to that.
I know it.
Really should.
You know, and get away from the wax-coated paper cups.
Yeah.
Let kids have their own
Yeah,
coffee
well,
mug.
Yeah.
You know, have a coffee mug. Let them hook it up. Have their own hook. Hard to do in a huge school, maybe, but you could do it in your classroom. Grab your mug, go down. It's lunchtime. You know, they could just pour their own. Now this is safe, right?
It's safe.
100% safe. You go. I'm not going. Yeah. See what's gonna happen here is. Okay, well, that's not so bad. There we go.
It's a little muddy.
Oh, shit. I almost swore. I found out I can be flat on my back for 4 days, and the household just runs.
Oh yeah.
They don't need me.
Isn't that nice?
It's very nice. I think we could kick them out at about 7 p.m.
Really? You think it's gonna take that long?
Maybe. I don't know. Some people are like, hey, my kid's advanced. I'm like, cool. In what? Oh, you don't have any turkeys at this place. Because it's for the greater good.
I feel really close to you right now.
I know.
How long have you had the flu? Do I
February-
need my mask?
February 18th. Yeah. No, this is tight, but we got the red. We're ruminating on the red bench today.
Yeah, with our muck boots.
Yep. We're muck lucky. So we're at your place,
Yep.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
I didn't get my bomber hat out though.
I got my hat too. I didn't. Not very prepared today. Still not 100%.
You should have wore a hat,
I should have wore a hat.
especially if you're cold. You've got sickness.
That's a myth.
Is it?
There's a lot of myths in parenting.
Oh, I knew you
I
were
see
gonna
what
turn
you
it
did
that way.
I see you lobbed that one in there. I hit that one hard. But we were talking about being sick and the household just running itself, and that's really good, I think.
Oh,
you
it's
know,
amazing.
I think I can understand how moms and dads it fulfills the need to want to be needed,
Yeah.
and that's so true. But the ultimate goal is we're raising not kids but adults, right?
Yeah.
And we want to lead them and get them there safely,
Right.
and kind of quickly.
In a previous class I've had some folks come, and maybe they're grandparents now who are taking care of their younger grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, oh, we're just here for our grandkids. We don't need this because, our kids are older. And I'll say, that might be true, but I bet you're still parenting those kids.
Well, we're always a parent, right?
Right.
Whether it's grandkids or, my parents, even though we're far away, there's some parenting that happens. It's different,
Yeah.
right? But I think what we want to differentiate for people is that, the goal is to get them out and independent.
Yeah.
Independence, and where we're not, I guess, enabling it on some level. Sometimes we end up enabling. And I guess my whole point is that I just was really happy that, because there was 4 days where I was useless, and my wife was working, and it's really humbling to wake up and realize the kids are gone.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten on the bus,
Right.
and then they leave a note by the coffee or by by the bathroom sink. Daddy, we hope you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Don't worry, everything's fine.
And that's something.
It's so cool. Yeah.
That happened to me. I had migraines between child 3 and 4 really badly. And so my older two, I'd wake up and, have you ever had migraines?
No, thank
So they're so debilitating that usually I can get through a lot of things, but these are no lights, no sound, just can't do anything. And I woke up and you've done a decent job when your kids are like, Mom, can I get you some crackers?
Yeah.
Mom, do you need some water? I'll get you a pillow. How about a blanket? Mom, we're going to take care of things today so that you
Don't
can
worry.
just feel
Yeah,
better.
Yeah.
And I feel like that also comes from modeling.
Yeah. Empathy.
And empathy.
Yeah.
And, when they're sick, I'm like, can I get you some crackers? Can I get you a drink?
What do you need?
A blanket?
Yeah.
I'm here for you. I got you. I
Yep.
got this. And it just turns around. And it doesn't take, I don't even think it takes a certain age maturity. It's just modeling what you see your parents doing.
Right.
And suddenly they're like, we got this. Don't you worry, Mom.
Yeah.
You've taught us how to handle ourselves.
That's all they know.
Right.
I mean, that's just how you respond, right?
Yeah.
So we're on the phone.
Oh,
You brought a wool blanket.
you're funny. This is Hutch.
Hi, Hutch. How are you?
Say hi.
It's not so bad out here.
Oh my gosh. You're not that sick.
I'm not that. My wife's like, you don't get sick often. It's rare I get a sniffle or something. But when I get it, it's whack. So
It's the man flu.
I got whacked. It was influenza A or B. I had
that
C.
stinks.
I created a new one.
See, Chris.
Yeah. I was at school the other day subbing, and that's the thing. This is the best my voice has been since February 17th. And I was subbing it, and my daughter had one of these sweatshirts on, and she came up 8th grade, right? Came up with some of her friends, and they had this whole TPP song, The Parenting Professor.
Oh my gosh.
I know, but that's just
Such sweethearts.
it's so cool. It's just kind of neat.
It
you know?
is cool.
Because I just think when
You're cooler than you think.
when I was 13, I was like, oh gosh, parents are dorks.
Yeah.
And I'm certain I am. We know you are.
Yeah, I know for sure.
Talk about what you're up to. Is this your merch?
This is my merch. It says
Hardy Soul.
Living Simply on Purpose on one side, and then it's got a little Hardy Soul logo on the other side. So we're
Same area.
5-generation farmers. And
Kind of like a toddler. Mom.
Oh,
Mom,
don't
mom,
even
mom,
get me
mommy,
started
mom,
on
mom,
that.
Mom. How do you
I
handle
just-
those situations?
I just talked to my class about that this last week. I said, you know what? Even as a parenting instructor, we all deal with like issues and challenges because as our kids grow, a new set of challenges come.
Yeah.
And just because you've done that challenge with your first child doesn't mean you're out of the woods. You know, like you still have to deal with that fourth child, completely different characteristic and personality.
Right.
Just is really curious right now. She's 3, and
She's 3 already.
she's 3. Yeah, and just really curious. And I wanna assist her with that.
Right.
But I also don't need this all day long. Mom, what? Mom,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Mom,
Yeah.
mom,
Right.
all day long. And then, of
Questions,
course,
questions,
there's 3 other
questions.
ones
Yeah.
that are needing help with homework, or
Right.
I'm hungry, or I need help with this. So I have to take a deep breath a lot. Just like, let's all take a deep breath, okay?
Sure,
One
sure.
at a time. I'm one person. I can
listen
take,
to one voice at a
yeah,
time.
I can take one person, and when they need me and I'm talking to somebody else, I've taught them to just hang on to my wrist.
Oh, cool.
You know, like,
Yeah.
I know you're there.
Yeah.
You know you have a question, but so that you don't forget your question, I want you to just hang on to my arm.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm ready for you, I'll look at you, and then it'll be your turn.
And a wise parent won't wait 20 minutes.
Right.
It'll be just enough and age appropriate
Right.
to. And does it takes some practice sometimes.
It
to
does
do
take
that.
practice, but I noticed that if you practice, you can go longer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like the first time you try it, it's a little short time. The next time you do it, it's a little bit longer and a little
Yeah.
bit longer. And that lesson of waiting and being patient is a lesson that will continue on for the rest of their life.
For sure. Patience is a strong word in a lot of schools right now that we're working on in schools.
Yeah.
I know a school close to where I live that you see posters, handmade posters about the patience, this concept of you know, immediacy doesn't have to happen just because
Interesting.
you're 10, you know. So she's learning things that are going to carry her through school,
Yeah.
you know, and her kindergarten teacher is going to be so thankful,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And what are we hauling? Poop?
No. Feed.
Oh yeah, feed.
Breakfast.
Yep.
Yep, so when they go in the shed, they get out of each bin the recipe.
Yeah.
There's a very specific
I noticed the
recipe.
mixture. Right. I mean, I didn't know
Yeah.
everything that was in there, but I noticed.
Yep, so there's a very specific recipe. It changes according to where the cow is in her cycle. It changes to according to the age. It changes the season.
Yeah. Right.
Squirrel.
I got pretty good at that with students in my classroom, you know, and I kind of had this routine of, you know, because kids, oh, pick me,
Me.
yeah, and that's what kids want, you know, they want to be seen, they want to be heard,
Yep.
but it's not child abuse to ask them to wait a reasonable amount of time, right?
Right.
So I got good at, I know you have a question, but it's okay for the adult to finish their thought, or mom to finish her phone conversation, or to finish, you know, cutting the tomatoes without the interruption, right?
Right.
And that's okay, don't you think?
Right.
Wait patiently.
I think it's
And if you forget, if you're a forgetful person, like, write it down, or
Yeah.
you know, or don't. Just
Or I've been teaching them to have a technique to remember, like for a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old who can't write. You know, we talk about this stuff also when the kids are calm and we're not in a I need you situation.
right.
Um,
So you're gonna teach ahead of time
right. So that
when
we're
everything's
not
chill.
right. So that we're not panicked when we get into the situation, either the child or myself.
So what I'm hearing you say is if we kind of rehearse it, talk about it when we're calm, have some like experiment with some situation. You could even make stuff up.
Oh, yeah.
Like pretend you're on the phone.
Yep.
And the child could come up to you and be like,
Right.
I see you, hold on. And at first it's a short amount of time, right?
Right.
And then we can extend that and
And just practice it. And
practice, yeah.
practice it, and then when we are, then we can have a semi, real kind of experiment, and then we can go through it. And I always like to practice things like this at home. And when we say we're going to practice at home, we're going to get really good at this, and then when we go out in public, that'll be our test.
Right.
So
Yeah.
get really good at honing in
Mhm.
these either coping skills or just skills that we're going through, right? Life skills.
Stuff, yeah.
And then when we're really good at it, we get to go out and practice it out,
Mhm.
either at church or restaurant,
Yeah.
a waiting room.
I remember, but going back, I wanted to say, like, so what if they get that test and they kind of mess up? Is that okay?
We get to try again.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I mess up every day.
Sure.
And I'm allowed to try again.
Yeah, right? So that's a real life skill.
It's grace.
Yeah, it is. It is. What are we hauling now?
Bobcat
Yeah.
going after some
Getting some more feed. But what if the kid comes up and is like, Mom, 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 Mom? Sometimes I like this concept of, oh, and how do we handle that?
Mhm.
Just a little, not really a reminder, but just a question. Because questions create thinking, right?
Right.
Questions create thinking. So, because a kid might be super excited or in the toy aisle, Mom, 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 look, right? Oh,
Yeah.
sweetie, and how do we handle that again?
Right.
Right.
Or sometimes I like to say, I'm going to let you try that again.
Yeah, I love that phrase. Try
and
again.
Why don't you try that again?
Yeah.
Oh,
And isn't it fun?
not quite there yet.
Yeah, but
Let's
isn't it
try it.
fun how they can totally it
Reset.
jogs a part of their memory? It's like, oh yeah, that's right.
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 But sometimes, we forget that kids need practice with a lot of things.
Right.
I remember when the girls were little, I used to plan swimming lessons so that they'd end about 10:45. By the time we got showered up and dried off and our clothes on, it's about 11. We're leaving the YMCA at about 11:10. Well, it's kind of about lunchtime, right? But not that heavy a crowd. So I tried to get swim lessons on Tuesdays, for example, where it's not busy. And then we'd practice going to a restaurant and ordering and sitting and washing our, if we needed to, or saying please and thank you. And, I even went as far as talking to the server that was always there at Tuesday lunch, right? That was her shift, lunch crowd. And I just talked to her ahead of time. Because a lot of times, you come with young kids, oh, and what would your daughter like?
Yeah.
And I'd be, the first time I'm like, I have no idea. And I remember,
Why don't you ask her?
I know, she looked at me like, I'm like, and then, I kind of spilled the beans like, well, we're practicing. We're going to come a few times here this next month or so, and we're going to practice. And
not only are we going to train our kids, but we're going to train you too.
Right. And we had a pretty good relationship, and it was really cool. About the third time, towards the end of 1 month or month and a half, we didn't go every Tuesday, but a couple times a month, and we'd order something kind of small, and I remember we got there about the third or fourth time, and they're almost waiting for us. She was waiting for us, and we were talking about choices, and sometimes she'd ask me about choices because she had kids too. And I remember we were talking about choices, and so she came out with the remote control. Do you want to watch the news channel or channel 31, which was PBS, right? And it was lunchtime, so
Nice.
Daniel's Neighborhood was on or something.
Sure.
So the kids owned it too,
Right.
and she had a lot of fun with it. But
And probably learned a lot.
but it just took a little bit of collaboration,
Yeah.
and working together. That you love that word village, creating
Yeah.
the village.
Right.
Some days I wonder when they show up.
Yeah.
When's the village coming? Do you have to order it?
Dude.
Do you need
Is it on
an
Amazon?
appointment? Should I?
Can you Google that?
Oh, don't make me laugh. I'll start talking.
Can you prime it?
Right?
Drop it
Does
in
it
with a
drop it in
drone?
with a drone? I need the village. You know, that'd be a heck of a, I don't know, a bumper sticker or something. Like, where's the village? We need the village.
We're just creating bumper
Great.
stickers
I
every
think
time
so.
we get together.
Did we talk last time about bumper stickers?
Pooping on the potty. It's good for everyone.
It's good for everyone.
That's funny.
Did that make the cut?
It did.
Did it? How's your class going?
Good. Good. We've got
You-
about 25 people in it.
Have you had 2 sessions? One,
Yep,
2.
we'll be in our 3rd session tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
No,
Tonight.
tonight. It's Monday.
Wow. Good thing we
Woo!
got that.
You know, with kids on spring break, it's kind of like every
It's
day's
hard.
a Saturday.
Yeah.
But yeah, tonight we have class 3, and it's going good. So people are starting to respond to emails, and people are starting to come up with some questions.
Good.
I've even seen a few aha moments happening, which is just amazing.
Those classes help create the village.
Yes.
I know I've had countless stories of people that found new friends because of that class.
Yeah.
And they hang out and they try things.
Right.
And they don't feel like they're being judged
Yeah.
because they're all going, you know what I mean? And they're speaking the same language.
Right.
And because have you ever parented and you're not around a Love and Logic parent
Yes.
and they kind of look at you like,
What is that
that's
language?
like, yeah, it's like, I don't know, alien talk. What's going
Right.
on? But when you're all on the same page, it
Yeah.
just makes things easier.
Right.
Hmm.
And I remember when we stopped at your house when we were on our way to Wisconsin Dells, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And you,
Was that at our old house?
Yes.
Yeah, in town.
and we had all the kids in the car, and we were bringing you eggs because you didn't have chickens yet.
Oh, that's what that was.
And you said, can I give the kids, it was, I don't know what time of year it was, why you had M&Ms or something. Can I give the kids M&Ms? And I said, sure. And so you opened the car door and you said, I like to give M&Ms to kids who are calm in the car on the way to the Wisconsin Dells.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
I do.
Oh.
And
it
the
work?
kids were like, he talks like that too?
Wow, yeah.
You know, like.
Isn't
so
that great?
When you have everybody talking the same language, the kids are
It
like.
creates a safe spot for a kid's brain, I think. Did we
Yeah.
talk about this last time?
No.
I call that flattening the threshold, you know, because when I was a kid, and maybe you can relate to this, you know, I was a pretty solid, decent kid, you know, and had a village around me of people and relatives and family and friends and small little rural community in northern Wisconsin. And but when I got, there was different versions of Chris, kind of. There was like, you know, the real me at home probably, and then when I got on the bus I was just a little bit different because it was a different environment. There was older kids, some mean kids, you know, language that I'd never heard
Right.
at home, so it's a little bit different Chris. And then when I got off the bus and went to the morning playground, you know, that was a little bit different version. And then I went into the school, and once again it's a little, and then when I got to my classroom, you know, most of my classes when I was little I had great teachers, and I felt really safe. So that was a different, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You went to church, you're a little bit different version.
Right.
And the thing that keeps pushing me is that exactly this concept that you're talking about. You know, having adults in kids' lives that approach raising kids and the concept of discipline in very similar ways, not prescribed, not like,
Yeah.
you know, robotic,
Right.
but very similar, so that when, you know, your daughter leaves home and she rides that big yellow thing that goes by, if she chooses to push boundaries or be a little bit of a knucklehead on the bus, how cool would it be if the bus driver handled it very similarly? And she thinks in her head, wow, when I push boundaries at home and when I push boundaries on the bus, my bus driver sounds like my dad.
Yeah.
And when I step off that threshold of the bus and onto the playground, and Mr. Matt out there taking care of making sure everyone's safe, if I push boundaries here, he sounds a lot like my mom at home, who sounds a lot like my bus driver. You see where I'm going? And then when she steps into the classroom, and if she pushes some boundaries there, that sounds a lot like my grandpa. and it's everyone, and I call that flattening the threshold. It's the same version of Chris or Emily, and I think especially with a young brain and heart, that if we can flatten those thresholds, we can truly start to flourish as a child.
It's a really interesting concept now that I think of it. You
Yeah.
know, how our kids are with their friends.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
are they different at school? You know, like, and we always kind of wonder, you know, if we were a mouse in the corner of a classroom,
Yeah.
what would that look like?
What
And would it be different?
Yeah. And it gets back to this concept of being authentic. And I think if kids can learn that concept of being authentic as early as possible,
Yeah.
right? You do it because you are you.
Right.
You act this way because that's just how you've found out how to navigate this world, and it works for you, and it keeps everyone's dignity intact.
Right.
You know, see, I get to sub a lot, so I get to see my kids. You know, I especially like to just kind of, when they're not looking at lunch or whatever, and just had this experience last week, and just pretty neat.
Yeah.
Without going into detail, just some cool stuff.
Right.
And it's fun to watch kids want to be around your own kids because they're safe and loving and caring.
And without you watching.
Without me saying, no, don't forget, no, you better act right.
Kinda cool.
Yep, right. Yeah, when they're doing it, because that's just kind of how they are. That's starting that path on being authentic.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Heavy.
Here's the problem. We love watching the movies on this out in the grass.
Sure. Does it
And
sink?
we'll watch the movie, and all of a sudden, before we know it, we're like reclining, and we're it's sinking into the mud. I think
Right.
I need to put some 2x4s under
Yeah,
here.
put some feet. You started out with this concept of modeling,
Yeah.
and a lot of times it's about week 3, I think, when people are in the class, they start hearing some of the words back. Like,
Yes.
oh, love you too much to argue.
Right.
Well, that can be hard for an adult to hear from a 10-year-old.
Right.
And I guess I always ask them this. Like, let's say you're a part of my class. I'll just say something like, are you like most parents? Did you ever yell at your kids? Oh, yeah, used to yell a lot. I'm working on it, you know. I'm like, did your kids ever yell back? Oh, gosh, all the time. And you can just see the light bulb go off. Oh, yeah. I'm like, would you rather have the yelling come back, or do you want to hear some love and logic language come back? Which one would you rather have?
Right.
Like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So just because it's so foreign to our ears still,
Yeah.
or most of our ears, because most of us weren't raised that way, you
Right.
know, it sounds weird coming back.
Right.
But over time, you don't really do love and logic. It's just how you operate with
What
people.
comes out.
Yeah. And that takes time
It takes time, and I also think
and
that
practice.
different life situations will take you back and push you forward. You know, like adding more children to the family. You know, I think like a stressor in our household is when we have 4 kids at home right after school. Everybody's hungry.
Oh,
We're
sure.
working on homework. We need baths. We need to do all of the stuff. Right? And I feel like sometimes there's things that happen that make us
Digress.
And then there's things like, oh, Emily goes teaches love and logic tonight. Oh, we progress, you know, like we
Right.
start to work on that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And
I know
always-
I know if I go a long stretch without teaching a full course, I can feel myself. It's like the summer slide in school. I just
need a class.
I need a
again.
class. So I
Like an
I just
AA group.
I always just think about you know, really I'm teaching this often for me.
You can
was in
see
a
your
guy's
breath out here.
lady's house. Oh yeah.
Wow, it's getting colder.
I knew a Russian DJ.
Okay.
And a Czech one too.
What?
Czech
I don't get it.
Czechoslovakia.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's a good one. What do you do when nobody laughs?
I knew a Russian. Oh, it don't matter. I do it for me. But truly, if you come to, from an altruistic perspective, you know, and you're doing it for your big
More
words.
big words.
Yeah, big words by Chris. Fireside Chat. But when you do it from that perspective of not
Yes.
wanting a person to react a certain way when you do it, because it just feels good,
Right.
and it feels authentic. I guess we're going to go back there, but
Right.
We were talking.
The tractor interrupted
It
my
did.
thought.
You got John Deere.
That's a Case IH, by the way. not-
See, I think that's hilarious.
It's not.
It's not.
No.
And a check one too. A check, Is this mic on?
Got it.
Check 1 2.
Oh my
Check.
gosh.
I had speaking of my wife, she gets so frustrated with my
Humor?
with
Your
my
jokes.
my terrible lack
Cooking.
of direction. So I finally had it like a couple years ago, and I packed up my stuff and I write.
You're funny.
I usually have to explain that one.
Is it snowing? So grace is something we were talking about too. Giving ourselves grace
Yeah.
and giving our kids grace to make
Mhm.
mistakes.
Mhm.
I think it's super important. What do you think?
Yeah, grace, patience, calm. I just have noticed that I keep getting feedback of parents that really get into the Love and Logic classes, parenting the Love and Logic way. They just notice this whole sense of just calmness and less stress.
And is that because of the kids or because of themselves?
Well, most of our kids are just pretty average. I end up telling stories about kids that I know really well and or students, but I've been around a lot of kids, less than a handful that are like, whoa, that kid's extremely brilliant or whatever. I mean, we're all given gifts, but most of our kids were just kind of pretty normal kids and push boundaries because they're hardwired, I think, to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do we do? So to answer your question, I think a lot of it has to do with kind of redirecting and retraining the adult, and how do we work through those tough situations with kids and lead and discipline, right, in the true sense of the word, and which isn't punishment based
Yeah.
type stuff. So yeah, giving grace. Like this just happened this morning. I've been under the weather, like I had mentioned, and just not feeling great. And I knew we were going to do this today, so I actually poured a little more coffee, and I just sat in my chair, and I'm like, I don't sit and just watch the news. So I just kind of was sitting there, and I wasn't doing emails. I just, and my phone rang, and I looked at it, and it was Grace, my daughter, and she's like, Dad, we kind of hurried out the door today. I forgot my trumpet.
Oh, bummer.
It's a rare thing,
Yeah.
And I said, I did. I said, oh, Grace, that stinks. What are you going to do? Now, when they get picked up, they go up a different valley and then turn around and come back.
Oh.
So, it wasn't a huge problem for me. She's like, Dad, would you mind just driving down to the end of that road and I'll come out and get it. I said, yeah, make sure it's okay with your bus driver, and I'll be down there. And I know she's thinking how much I'm gonna have to pay him back somehow, right? A little restitution, but she'll hear something like, sweetie, I forget things from time to time too.
Yeah.
I like that idea that we help each other because we love each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. Now, if it becomes a habit,
Right.
we'll have to just kind of lead you through that process. But
Right.
I think in a situation like that,
Right.
it's not a big deal.
Right.
Is that okay?
I think that's awesome.
Is that grace?
It is.
Giving grace to grace?
Giving grace. Yeah. Because someday I want them to come to me and be like, hey, Mom, I realized I was yelling a lot last night, or we were yelling at each other a lot last night, but can we just make today different? Like a little bit of empathy, a little bit of grace. Yeah, you know what? Last night wasn't great. Let's start over today.
Yeah. Yeah.
For both of us.
Totally.
And
that's, again, good modeling.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people think, well, Love and Logic parents don't get mad. We get angry.
Oh, of course.
But we try to limit the yelling and
Yeah.
the manipulation or the
Threats.
threat. I call them adult, little temper tantrums.
Right.
Yeah.
Some parents I know put a thinking chair in their bedroom and just
Oh, really?
sit there and
Is that what
have
that
a
chair
little-
was?
Have a little time to think. It was. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes mommies need thinking time.
Certainly. And it's tough with 4 kids. I don't know how you do it.
It's hard. And, you know, they're all at different levels. The older two help with the younger two for sure. But I also don't want them to think I'm missing out on my childhood because I have to help mom with the kids.
Right.
You know, like
Yep.
that's, but they're very helpful. But the little two are still learning too. So there's a lot of mom, I need, I want. You know, so there's a lot of like working through that and being patient with them and them being patient with me.
I have to believe though that the learning curve for the younger ones it will be shorter. They'll learn
yeah.
quicker. Yeah.
And a thing that I learned,
It comes back to that modeling again.
right,
What
Yeah.
did you learn?
because the older two are modeling for the younger two.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I learned with the younger two is breathing. So, I don't know, I've been doing yoga for 12 years, I suppose, once a week. And, you know, yoga is a lot of breathing exercises.
Being
and that
mindful,
kind of thing.
right?
And just still. And one time I put somebody in their room because they needed some time to think. And when I left them there, they were 2. The youngest was 2. And I left them there and I did this. Just for myself, right?
Yeah.
And what did I see come back to me, right? This mirroring.
Certainly, yeah.
So like what the 2-year-old was doing was,
Wow, what a gift.
and the next time we had to do that sort of situation, the same thing happened. So not only are we releasing these, you know, things that we need to leave our bodies when we're breathing, we're slowing our breathing. We're able to start thinking then. And that's what the younger two do. So the baby learned from the older one, and they do that back and forth. And even when they get anxious or upset or agitated somehow, I see that little breath, like in through the nose, out through the mouth, right? And if I can see them getting agitated, sometimes I'll just say, hey, let's do a little breathing, you know, and that little breath. But I didn't do that with the older two, so I'm learning too, you know. So the younger two have.
Well,
that
they can
down
teach.
pat.
Just because you're younger doesn't mean you're not teachers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just
Cool.
it's a really interesting way that they've learned to cope with getting it together.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
what we
Oh, that'll take them a long way.
say that around our house. There's what do you need to get it together?
Yeah. I always use the phrase handle it.
Yeah.
How can you handle this?
Right.
Well, you could throw a fit
Yeah.
or not. How
But
would you-
it's
how would
just
you-
not here.
Yeah. And then there's techniques for that, right? Okay.
Thanks for joining the professor and I today on a very chilly day in Minnesota.
It was 65 yesterday.
It's like 20 below right now.
Dear Lord.
And I can see my breath. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Rumination on red chairs on a red bench in Minnesota.
If you have other ideas or topics you want us to...
Yeah.
This is random. We don't practice.
There's no script.
There's zero script.
And it's best that way, I think.
Probably.
Thanks for joining us
Adios.
and have a great day.